She disappeared from a bowling alley in the 1990s. She was just 2 years old.
Hey family, and welcome back to a new episode on our true crime series. Did you guys miss us? We know it's been a while, but we had to get back in the game for you guys. So on today's episode, we'll be talking about Teekah Lewis. On January 23rd, 1999, Teekah Lewis disappeared from a bowling alley. Tika and her mom decided to join over a dozen of their family members at a bowling alley just to have a night of fun. Now, Tika and her mom didn't get out much, so they really soaked this night up. They wanted to just, spend time with family and love on each other and just, get out the house for a little bit. Well, at the bowling alley, it was league night, so it was over 300 people there. It was so loud, but the bowling alley consisted of a restaurant. They had an arcade there, and they even had a bar there. So imagine the chaos that was going on this night. Well, in between bowling, Tika and her mom, Artryssa, would go back and forth to the arcade because Tika loved the games, just like any kid. I know when we go to the bowling alley, our kids tend to be drawn to the arcade as well. So this was for a toddler. I can see her running back and forth to the arcade. Well, her mom would go with her and to play a few games, but when it was her turn, she would go back, to the family. And it was so many of them there that they would take turns watching the children. Well, at one point, Tika decided she wanted to play on this card game. So her and her mom went over. Tika sat on the card game. With her little finger. She was only 2, y'all. So she would sit there and try to, drive the car. And her mom turned away for like 10 seconds to watch her brother bowl. Tika was one of 5 children, I believe. So her mom turned away for like 10 seconds. And when she turned back, Tika was gone. How devastating is that?
I wouldn't know what to do if I turned one way for 10 seconds and literally turned right back and my child vanishes in thin air.
I know. Like, my heart broke. Completely broke, being that we have a toddler. At that time, Tika's father, Robert, was incarcerated.
Put me right back to when I was in prison, to 1999. When I was in prison, I got that phone call.
So we know for sure he had nothing to do with it. He was cleared. When she turned back around and didn't see Tika, she instantly started searching everywhere. The panic set in, and just reading about it and watching, the clips that I've watched, I could feel, that panic that she could instantly, feel. So she got to looking behind the games. She even looked in the restroom. About 6 feet from the arcade was the door, but the door was super heavy. So she didn't believe her daughter would be strong enough to push the door open and go outside. She still went outside and looked in between cars and called her name out. Now, Tika and her mom was very, very close. Like, close to the point where if even her siblings or her grandma or anyone would try to hold her, she would cry for her mom and instantly want to go back to her mom. So they had a really close, relationship. So she knew for a fact if she went outside and called her baby's name, her baby would scream back out to her. It was also, said that she wouldn't go to anybody. So if anybody was to take her, her mom knew she would scream. And knowing her, she did scream. However, keep in mind, there were over 300 people in the bowling alley. On top of music, on top of loud, people talking loud, and so much chaos going on that night. So, it's not, unlikely that her mom didn't hear her scream or that anybody didn't hear her scream.
Missing now for more than 2 decades. Teekah Lewis is her name. You probably have heard about the story. It's just shocking and gut-wrenching. She disappeared from a bowling alley in the 1990s. She was just 2 years old. This year's vigil is different because, as King 5's Michael Crow tells us, investigators have a new lead.
21 years.
Everything has to go.
21 years that Artryssa Lewis has set up the tent.
So let's go right here.
21 years that she's gathered people close with candles and pictures.
In the car somewhere.
Do you want an umbrella?
21 years.
21.
Feels like an eternity without her daughter Tika.
A lot, yeah. I didn't want to do this again. You know, it's been 21 years. I want it over with. You know, I want the person that knows or seen this man to come forward.
Tika disappeared from the Tacoma bowling alley that stood here.
Oh, hi.
So they stand here year after year on January 23rd.
If my daughter's not here no more, it's going to hurt a lot of people.
But this one is different.
Just because of the new information that's coming out.
This time, investigators have a description of a man believed to be there that night. A white man, 30 to 40, with brown curly hair, a mustache, and pockmarks on his face. A glimmer of hope in the darkness.
I just felt like the world just collapsed on me, man. You know, like, why me, you know?
Hope her father, Robert, won't abandon.
She's out there. You know, God works miracles, man, you know? She'll be home. Trust me.
Hope Teresa keeps every day.
She's the one that keeps me going. I don't like to wake up on this day because who wants to? Their child came missing on this day. But I do this for her to get her picture out there.
But most of all, they hope not to be here next year.
I hope not. I hope not. I don't want to keep doing this. I don't.
Even if she doesn't come back, at the very least, they want closure.
I always pray that, she would come up and say, I'm Teekah Lewis. And that's what we've always prayed for, is for her to walk into a vigil.
After 21 years.
I hope so.
Now, at one point in the bowling alley, this young man who was a teenager at the time was going to the bathroom when this man bumped into him. And he said he would never forget this because he was so rude. Like, so rude to him. And he was like, dang, you bumped into me and you're this rude. But he did notice that the man with curly hair and pock marks in his face, like holes, like kind of in his face, had a little girl. And the little girl was mixed and the man was a white gentleman. And he didn't think anything of it. He just thought that, that was her dad and he was rushing her to the bathroom or something. He didn't realize until the police was out there asking questions, asking everybody and looking for something, what was really going on. At that point, he did, go to the police and tell the police what he had saw, but they didn't question him any further about the situation. First, Tika mom, she did, report it to the security guards, and they made an announcement over the intercom about a child being missing, but a lot of people didn't stop or didn't seem to care. Shall I say, they didn't seem to care at that point that a child was missing because they kept bowling. But her family immediately stopped. They all searched the bowling alley, even where the employees are. They searched there. They searched the restroom. I know at one point, one of her cousins was in the bathroom changing their baby. And she asked if her baby had went in there. And her cousin was like, no, she hadn't seen her. So at this point, they have literally looked everywhere and couldn't find Tika. The police did get involved because they called the police and they got there so fast. So it happened around 10:15-ish that night. By 10:30, the police was there. So it was super speedy. They did an extensive search for this baby over 15 hours. They stopped. They put a blockage up. They stopped all the cars from leaving. They just wanted to search everybody's car to make sure she didn't accidentally, climb in somebody else's car thinking it was hers. So they did stop cars and search cars and searched wooded areas and questioned sex offenders in the area and asked, because there was some apartments right across from the bowling alley. So they even went there and was passing out flyers and asking people in the apartments had they seen anything, and nobody had seen anything. However, one person at the bowling alley that was outside that night around the same time Tika went missing saw what they described as a late 80s, early 90s maroon Pontiac speeding out the parking lot around the same time she went missing, which I found that to be super suspicious. Like, What a coincidence.
At the same time.
At the same time.
That you have a car speeding out of the parking lot. But at the time, she didn't know, right? Like, she just thought...
No, she didn't know until
that
the police got
missing,
there. Yes.
But when she put it together, it was like, that's when she came forward to the police and told them about the Pontiac and things like that. Which I honestly think maybe Tika was in that Pontiac.
I do too. Oh, this just breaks my heart.
And they did say that maybe a week before Tika went missing, a man and his son was at that very same bowling alley, and his son went to the restroom at one point and didn't come back, and after so long, someone had found his son laying on the bathroom floor, and that he had been mistreated by another male, and
essayed.
he had been essayed by another male, and that, I mean, now at this point, I'm thinking that it is some particular man or woman targeting kids at this specific bowling alley, because that is not a coincidence with a week apart and then a week later you have this 2-year-old go missing after playing in the arcade, which is right by an exit door, and no one has no leads. That's crazy.
That is ridiculous. Well, just like he said, you know, like a few weeks before that happened, and then another incident happened as well, where a family went to the bowling alley to bowl, just to spend the night at the bowling alley, and her son decided to go to the arcade, right? So she's looking back and forth as she's bowling, and she can literally just look back and see the arcade. So she noticed a man kneeling down beside her son. She immediately gets up to go see what's going on. She walks over there and she overhears this man telling her son that, "I'm your dad." And so she, you know, panicked, but she told the security guard about it. And I don't believe they called the police and reported that to the police. The first incident with the son in the bathroom wasn't reported to the police. He did report it to the security, which he thought they reported it to the police. He found out the next day that they didn't, because he called to follow up on it, which is sad. And it got me thinking, like, what is really going on? You know, what was going on at this bowling alley?
It almost makes me think that it's an employee or someone at this bowling alley, but one thing for sure, it has to be a regular, because out of all these incidents, the picture of the man that's doing creepy stuff keeps popping up, and everyone's saying that it's a white male with curly brown hair, with pop marks in his face. Everyone is explaining the looks of the same suspect man. So, and a couple years later, I forgot who it was that came forward, but they showed a picture to Tika's mom, and it was a man with curly hair and pop marks in his face. And she said as soon as she seen that picture, her body instantly got chills, because she said that she remembers seeing that guy at the bowling alley that night, and she also remembers seeing that exact same guy follow a Facebook page of hers that she has dedicated to finding Teekah Lewis. So she instantly knew that, hey, I've seen this guy at the bowling alley that same night, and that guy also followed this Facebook page that's dedicated to finding my daughter. So she instantly knew that something wasn't right about that.
Tika's mother, Teresa, told us earlier this week that police showed her a picture of the man back in November. Instantly, she says her heart sank.
I remember the guy from the bowling alley. And if that's the case, there's no way Tika's here no more.
Teresa told us the man followed a Facebook page that she runs dedicated to finding Tika. She says he did not seem like a person she would want around her children. Police have not released the man's picture publicly.
Yeah, for sure. And I know a TV show came out, they like 2 weeks after she disappeared, they went to the same bowling alley to reenact it. And, you know, of course, people are outside, you know, watching on, and a few people reported that they seen a man with curly hair and pock marks outside, watching alone. And it said that, murderers come back to where, they have done things to watch just to see.
And they reported that guy, they reported him actually for weird behavior. They said, hey, this guy's out here watching the reenact of this little girl gone missing, and he's acting really weird. And I don't think it's a coincidence that it's a guy with curly hair and pop marks in his face.
Right.
This same guy keeps popping up.
Right. And then also, on the same exact day that Tika went missing. Now, this incident wasn't at the bowling alley, but it was like a mile away from the bowling alley at a park. This dad had his 4 children, at the park to play, and he literally had to stop a man from abducting one of his children. And he reported it, but he reported the man getting into a blue Pontiac and driving away.
The same model.
What a coincidence.
The same model that the other young lady said she seen speeding out of the bowling alley parking lot. The same exact moments that Tika got.
Tika went missing, yeah.
So, I mean, the colors may be mixed up, but in the moment of panic, people get height mixed up.
Yeah.
People get color mixed up.
Yeah.
People get all that stuff mixed up. But one thing that they're not getting mixed up is the same year, model, and make of this same exact car.
Right. Now, I will say news outlets did an amazing job with keeping her name out there and keeping her story out there. Her mom took several polygraph tests. I believe she took 2. Mm-hmm. Even her family was willing to take polygraph tests. The father, he was ruled out because he was incarcerated at the time. But she is still, to this day, over 20 years later, I believe it's been 24, 25 years now, she's still searching for Tika. I do know 3 days after she went missing, they had search dogs, and search dogs led them to this bushy area across from the bowling alley where they did find a few garments. I believe it was a pea coat with some initials on it. They found some Lee jeans, and they found a Columbia plaid shirt. Now, it's not said that if, that corresponds with Tika or if it's from someone who took Tika. They didn't know. At the time, Amber Alert wasn't a thing. This happened in Washington, Tacoma, Washington. So at that time, Amber Alerts wasn't, a thing there. So Amber Alert went out.
And that bowling alley had no cameras.
On the inside or outside.
So they literally have no luck with camera footage.
No.
They said it was over 300 people in the bowling alley, and it was league night, so a lot of people was recording. So everybody in there that was recording, the police asked to view their footage to try and see if they can see Tika on footage or maybe catch the abduction on footage, but they had no luck with none of that.
No. And I know at one point, her neighbors, Teresa's neighbors, called in and was like, Tika's not missing. Like, I'm watching her in the front yard. She's playing in the front yard. But when they got there was actually Tika's younger sister playing. So they also end up finding a young lady, a young girl deceased. I believe she was around 4 years old at the time. A few years later, which Teresa thought initially was her daughter, but it wasn't her. And then also here recently, they found a girl in Dallas that looked like Tika and had the pointy ears like Tika, and her mom really thought that was her because she was homeschooled. She wasn't allowed to, go out and have much interaction. But as y'all know, with COVID, a lot of people stepped back to homeschooling. The kids had to be homeschooled at one point. So, I mean, I can see that. But that also wasn't Tika. And this is such a tragic event that happened. And I know even though it's been so long ago, that pain never subsides. that's why we wanted to, shed light on this case. If you haven't heard of her, her name is Teekah Lewis. Her mom has social media pages created to help find Tika and to bring closure to their family. If you know anything or can remember anything, please reach out to her family to help bring closure to her. If you guys have any true crime series that you want us to cover, any cases that you want us to cover, feel free to leave them down below or to shoot them in our email, and we'll definitely get them up for you guys. We thank you guys so much for rocking with us for this long and for watching our videos. We love y'all as always. Be safe out here, and we will see y'all in the next one.